Your co-host, by the way. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News on this Monday morning. Getting y'all started early. Kelly's telling me in Facebook something about the sound. Kelly, we're getting that sound rolling. My name is Mr. Henry. We got some new graphics back there. Got some new gray and black and white. It's going to be a good one today, man. There are so many national stories coming through. There's so many stuff just busting out.
Things are open. Things are open. It's wonderful. Like I went out this weekend and I felt like real life again
Right?
at least in Knoxville. I don't know where you live, but it felt like real life. I was able to go to like a restaurant and like do things, normal things. That was cool. I was living that freedom life this weekend. It was really nice.
Living that freedom life. One quick plug here real quick too. You'll see in the show notes, as most often we have there, ways for y'all to take action, ways for y'all to make your voice heard. One of the headlines you're seeing up there, Senator Kennedy essentially came out and his response to the Democrats' bailouts, aside from saying that it's DOA in the Senate, or what he's saying right now is that it's just not going to get through the Senate or something. He's saying we just can't get our heads that far up our rear ends, which is just like an absolutely classic response, I think, too. I don't know, man. Senator Kennedy for you. But make your voice heard on that rejectbailouts.com, rejectbailouts.com. You'll see that up there right now. Also, if you want to make your voice heard on the property tax issue going on in Nashville right now, sign that petition up there. And something we haven't spoken a lot about in this program, but telemedicine in Tennessee, something that we're fighting pretty hard for on our end. Sean and I are doing a lot of work to continue these telemedicine. The restrictions that were lifted, we're hopefully going to continue some of those restrictions being lifted all the way through. Telemedicine, one of those in particular, that we're going to be working on as well. And lastly, you'll see a civil asset forfeiture video that our buddy Shine put up over the weekend there. It's pinned at the top of the Real News page. Sign that civil asset forfeiture petition. Let us know everything. Shine, how you doing on your end this morning, man? Anything you're thankful for over the weekend? I know you're in the middle of a move, buddy, and that's going to be hard on you on your end.
Well, moving is the 7th level of hell. I mean, it's just the absolute worst. I hate moving so much, and I'm having to do that. The only part of my house that isn't completely torn to shreds right now is this little corner that you see. So you can see like there's a corner. There's a wall over there. This tiny little corner is the only order in a house full of chaos. We moved stuff all weekend. We'll be moving stuff all week. I have to come to Nashville for 2 days and hang out with you, so I'm missing 2 days of moving. Katie's so happy about that. But I'll be finishing up on Saturday, but then I'll have a great new place and a new studio to do all this stuff. So hopefully by next Monday, it'll look just as cool as it does today. Maybe cooler.
Hey, let me start the program today, too. We do this thing called Greatest Audience of the Nation Appreciation segment. That's just let us know where you're at, where you're coming from, how you're doing with certain things, what you need help with, what you need prayer concerns for, any shouts of praise, anything like that at all. I stumbled across this pretty cool story here, and Shine actually told me that they were doing the same thing out there in the Oak Ridge area. This is a East Nashville High School. Let me make sure I'm getting that correct here. East Nashville High School. They're doing these graduations, high school graduations for seniors. Obviously, they're doing drive-through graduations, which on its face doesn't sound that spectacular. But when you think about it, man, it's essentially like coupling a parade with a graduation, which I was telling Shine just off air a second ago. It's like, all right, man, if you got to be shut down for some restrictions or something like that due to COVID-19 stuff, that's the way to do it, right? It's a celebratory moment anyways. Instead of doing a normal thing in a stadium where you have to wait to, clap for your kid through until everyone goes through, you have to make it this entirely formal moment as my entire screen is reloading here, which is just awful. We'll We'll deal with that in a second. But whatever, man. Make it a celebratory moment. You get what I'm saying? Celebrate with your kids as a parade's going through. Honk your horns, get your flags out there, do all your stuff, man. It's a pretty awesome thing. But you said they were doing this in Oak Ridge as well, Sean?
Well, you know, I'm not sure if they were doing the exact same thing now that I think about it. I think they did something similar, but they also produced like an HD 2 or 4K movie that they were playing on, online and then on the local television channel where they celebrated everybody. So that's another random solution. Not every city has their own cable channel like Oak Ridge does. They have their own television station. So that's kind of unique. But I believe they did something like that where they did a drive-through thing. But I think everybody is using what they have to do what they can to celebrate these kids in a random terrible situation where the normal rites of passage are not allowed. Because this is huge. I mean, like, there's a lot of people who that's like in our grand human scale, we have AD and BC, and we mark a time period for a certain reason, and we do because something awesome happened. Well, we do that in our own lives too, and a lot of people think of, instead of BC and AD, it's before high school and after high school.
Yeah, that's right. I hear you.
Like, even people catch themselves saying things like, "Hey, I'm almost down to my high school weight." Because why is that important? Why don't you say I'm down to my 22-year-old weight or my 25-year-old weight? Because there's something important in the human mind in our culture. It's one of the last vestiges of ritual that we have left. I mean, people barely get married anymore, but everybody is supposed to graduate high school. And it's a universal deal of showing everyone that I know that some people are going to laugh at this, but it's saying I'm an adult and I'm ready to take on the world, And thank God these kids are getting that, because otherwise maybe they would have been less motivated to take on the world. Maybe they would have still felt like they were a child. So, and we need that youthful energy. We need these budding adults more than we've ever needed them before. We need them to get out there and produce some value for us all. And I'm so glad that they're getting that.
Here's a little bit of that video that I don't know, man. It's just a feel-good story over the weekend. Here's a little bit for y'all.
This is not your typical high school graduation. Single file line of vehicles, mom or dad behind the wheel, teachers cheering from the sidelines 6 feet apart, and your masked principal handing you a diploma with an elbow bump. Even your photos with friends look a lot different. This is East Nashville Magnet High School's drive-through graduation.
This is a new, cool way to do graduation in a situation like this.
While schools in Tennessee have been closed since March, May marked graduation for 176 seniors.
But you know what I'm saying, though, buddy, right? I mean, like, I don't know. It's just it's a feel-good story. Puts a smile to your face. I'm sure the video is a little bit choppy, but it was really just the still images that I wanted everyone to see. Because I was watching this over the weekend, and I thought, like, all right, man, there's a perfect example of some people making the best of a terrible situation. Right. And honestly, in retrospect, it makes me think back, like, I don't know, dude, I may have actually wanted to do my high school graduation in that exact same way.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty about, times where you have to innovate. Maybe they learn something that they'll keep in addition to doing regular graduation in the future. Because like you said, that's a really cool idea. Doing the parade.
When it's keeping stuff local here as well in the Nashville area. I was talking to Sean about this just off air a second ago, man, and you'll see in the show notes they're linked at the top of the page there as well. I'll go ahead and share this portion of the screen so everyone can see where they're at here. I'm sort of just thinking out loud here, and I'm trying to formalize this a little bit more. This video is not necessarily to play here. We can actually read through some of the quotes from the interview itself, but Tennessee Freedom Rally actually met for the third time. Tennessee Freedom Rally. I say that one more time. Let's see if that affects the Facebook and YouTube algorithm. If we get the video shut down, right? But they met for the third time in Nashville today on that lawn that you're actually seeing in the picture right there. And the group obviously is protesting against regulations that Tennessee Governor Lee and Nashville Mayor Cooper. Now that puts an interesting angle on it that I didn't bring up before, Shine, right? In particular, Mayor Cooper, which is a totally different level of restriction than what Governor Lee is implementing right now, right? And this is the third time they've met, and I was talking to Shine, I was like, man, it's interesting to see a lot of this stuff, what's going on, when you start to think the number of times that they've come out and the change that they've actually been able to infect. effect, rather, let me say. Okay, the way that I think, I don't know whether Governor Lee is responding to some of these protests or not. Who am I to say? I don't really. No
I don't know. A lot of things changed after the first weekend they went out.
Exactly.
A lot. I mean,
really did.
And I would even say it started the ball rolling for our entire region. I mean, not just even in Tennessee. The fact that they participated was part of a greater message being put out there in multiple states. I mean, look what that movement's done in Michigan. They just invalidated the order through the state Supreme Court. They got the whole legislature to vote to invalidate the order. And so, like, I think it's they're very. I see their posts. They're very conscious that this is a national movement too. So that's more context.
Well, they met obviously for the third time here, and you'll see on the screen right here. I'm reading it along with y'all. The News Channel 4 spoke to this the organizer Kimberly Edwards, and asked why they decided to host yet another rally. And it's interesting, even the language that's used right here: host another rally. Right? Like I think that the implication for Channel 4 is like, you already did it once. What else do you need to prove? You already did it a second time. And Governor Lee opened up bowling alleys earlier than he was going to before. He opened up, I don't know, gyms or something earlier than he was going to before. I don't know. Whatever the things is that you already proved your point. What else do you need to show type thing? Her response, obviously, as you can read, is basically, we're here in between the Capitol and the health department to say, look, we see you. We know that these are bureaucratic committees are influencing policy, but it's time for you to lay down your power. It's time for the shutdown to end. It's time for our constitutional rights to be put number one priority. She goes on to say that she believes every regulation should be a choice for each individual person. Maybe that in and of itself is something that everyone could have a conversation about, but she finalized by saying, I would like for the executive orders to be rescinded and for this just to be guidelines only from now on. Right? And I focus yet one more time because I'm really just wondering where the real news audience feels about this too. When News Channel 4 asked her host another rally right there, how much of this do you think, man, is for some of these folks that are showing up again is maybe they love the sense of community that they're getting out of this as well, right? They're drawn to the idea of belonging to something. They're drawn to the idea of the thought of making a difference right now, making a difference in anything right now. Right? They want to feel like they're in control of something when so much of their life is in flux, when so much of their life is just, I don't know, man, this sort of vacillating between, I don't know what the executive government is telling me, and I don't know where my civil liberties lie, and I don't know where I should be thinking about health concerns or the medical community. Something that you can control is to show up in an environment like this, man, and try and enact some kind of change, right? I think they like the idea of the community that's built around it as much as they possibly do like the idea as well of influencing the possible outcomes of the Constitution. I don't know, man. Real news audience, let me know what you think about that. But I do feel like stuff like this right now, there's been so much stuff forced upon the American populace that the government has now sort of enforced this idea so much that it's that Kung Fu Panda thing, Shine, right? That a lot of times I think government is now meeting its destiny on the road that it's taken to avoid it. Right? I got this video sent from Gabi this morning, my wife here, about this Romanian church in Chicago. I'll play the video if you want to. But there's police lined up in the front of this private parking lot, to shut down people from coming into their church, right? And now for that entire congregation of Romanians, which I'm telling you right now, buddy, like you want to mess with a group, don't use government to mess with Romanians, all right? Go look up the history.
Don't mess with people who lived under communism and were told for decades, multiple generations, they weren't allowed to worship, and they still figured out a way to do it because their kids and grandkids are alive today in America doing it. And even maybe some of the people that are alive now lived under communism. Don't mess with them. Look what they did to Romania in the 80s.
Dude. Right?
Look what they did. Go look at the history of what
they did to their leaders.
To the dirty communists who were running Romania back then. I mean, is it good to be seen as communists? If you're an American municipal government, is that good to feel the same to these Romanians as communists did? That's weird and bad.
Right.
That's bad.
And it starts to make me think, man, like, all right, so for this now entire church full of Romanians, what have you done for them? You've created a scenario by which now all of a sudden it's them against government. It's I don't know, shutdown versus First Amendment. It's something entirely unrelated at all to the coronavirus situation, man. And I'm starting to wonder, like, how much of this is just community getting through that portion of it, and how much have we disassociated it from the actual coronavirus situation going on? I don't know, man. Maybe I'm entirely off the mark here, but I'm telling you, man, that you're starting to see more and more conversation about this. I saw an interview last night with Bill Gates talking about his not net worth, but his return on investment. This was like a Forbes interview, a Market Watch interview or something. But his net return on an investment for investing, I don't even know the numbers. Let's call it $21 million or something like that to the vaccine, or call it $2 billion, whatever the number is. It was something like 1,000-fold return on investment from the vaccine stuff.
What a hero.
About, man.
What a hero. what a charity. I mean, he's just giving away his money to help the world, Mr. Henry. Have you seen all those Facebook and Twitter posts about Bill Gates giving away half his money to help his fellow man? And that's how billionaires are supposed to act. And then he comes out in Forbes and say all that money I donated actually got a huge return on investment in my charity. Freaking weird.
I know, man. Right.
Well, I'm gonna just say it. I'm done with all this. I'm done. I mean, I've tried to be measured and mature or whatever. I'm done. I'm done with all of it. I put up a just a simple Facebook post, a Twitter post last night. It hit me like an emotional crescendo around 10 o'clock last night. Reject infinite executive power. Reject it. This isn't about personalities. This isn't about the actual people making the decisions. I mean, I don't know. I'll use this because Joe Rogan said it so well last night. There are archetypes about how people abuse power. There's only a few ways people do it, and it's well documented throughout our story legend narratives of myths and whatever, and it's well documented in actual history. The way power changes people, changes situations, and how it can be misapplied. One of the easiest ways to misapply power is to abuse it and to think you have more than you do. That is a common thing. I mean, this happens when you have team captains at work. This happens when someone gets a managerial position sometimes, in addition to being state governors and mayors and presidents and things like that. But in general, my message until this whole thing is over is reject infinite executive power. We've seen a lot of executives deny their legislatures, deny what judges are saying. And you've seen judges deny what other people are saying. Whatever. I don't care who it is. Just I'm rejecting that. I'm rejecting the idea that any executive in any position has the power to say businesses are closed. They do not have that power. They don't have the power to enforce it. They don't have the power to give out the order. And I'm not trying to be rebellious. I'm not trying to be cantankerous. I'm not trying to call people to any kind of action. I'm just saying in my own individual space, inside this brain, where nobody can get inside. Google can't get in there. Apple can't get in there. The state of Tennessee can't get in there. The U.S. government can't get in there. Inside this space, which is only mine and no one else's, in that space, the rule is reject executive power. Infinite executive power, not all executive power. But I am really tired of this nationwide of people accepting that their governors have the ability to say, you can't go to work, you can't do business, you can't go outside your home, you can't enter this place without a mask. Screw you. You know? I mean, and that's the nicest way to say it. And I stand with all these people who were out there for the Free Tennessee rally, not because I think that Tennessee... The order does need to be rescinded. It does. We need to go back to normal order under normal law. And then we also need to send a message to everybody who could be an executive in the future. This is not okay. We've set a very dangerous precedent that someone can say, ooh, gabooga, there's a disease. All of you stay in your house. That's a very bad precedent. Because from now on, we could think there's a disease going on somewhere, and there could be just a powerful government beating down on people somewhere in their homes. Like, what if China said, oh, there's a really bad breakout in Taiwan. Everybody in Taiwan, stay in your homes, and we're going to send 50,000 troops and make sure that you stay safe. That's what we've allowed to be a normal thing forever now because we've complied with this. And I think you've definitely seen... I'm rambling. I'm sorry. Cut me off here.
No, look at the headline that's up on the screen right now. I think this is exactly what you're talking about. It's not rambling. It's proving the point that a lot of people are dealing with their own personal frustrations on. And this, again, man, this is one of my major fears when we came into this period. We entered into this COVID-19 shutdown period like on the precipice or riding that crest almost. Maybe we weren't at the top of the crest, but we were pretty darn close to the top of crest of the top of the crest of our inability to have a nuanced conversation, our outright refusal to have a rational conversation about almost anything. Like everything had to be partisan. It was forcibly partisan. You know what I'm saying? Like you had to pick left or right, and you had to pick the fringe of left or right. There was no ability to be in the middle ground of any of this. And now all of a sudden we have a situation. Look at this headline right here. And I think that's what Albert Citizen just was making reference to a second ago, talking about Gov scam. Yeah. But look, Governor Newsom here, okay? Talking about California prepared to enact martial law if it's necessary, governor says. And we've seen now, Elon Musk now is flipping around. He sent out some sort of, oddly cryptic tweet last night talking about like, take the red pill. I mean, now, Ivanka Trump responding back with like, yes, take the red pill or whatever that thing was. But it's this weird thing, buddy, of like my frustration is a little bit similar to yours because, man, I always I'm trying to be that objective guy of listen to the medical experts, listen to the scientific community, but you can't do that anymore. Like you just can't do that because if you do have some evidence that goes against the common media narrative, if you do have some evidence, let's say the LA County evidence, okay? LA County did this antibody test and it basically showed that like maybe we were off by, I don't know, a couple 100,000. Maybe we initially thought that 4,000 people tested positive when in actuality it might be 400,000 people, which does a dramatic decrease to the potential lethality of this particular disease, right? And whether that's a good thing or bad thing, I don't know, but it's at least something that people should be able to have a conversation about, right?
But at this point, Mr. Henry, just from a matter of just logic and reason, if there was potential lethality, we wouldn't be talking about potential. The time for talking about potential is over. We have 80,000 people who've died, and which is a large number of people. At this point, I'm starting to think that a lot of those people had a very high chance of death between February and where we're at right now anyway, because of the numbers we're getting about the kinds of people who are dying, like 99% of them of having other underlying causes. But there's been enough people exposed, we'd have a much higher amount of death if the potential lethality was super high in the United States. Millions of people live in the city of New York. Millions and millions of people live in the city of New York. They're all packed together. They all ride the subway trains. And not to mention, they're not social distancing. I posted an article last night about people in New York in the bars. Bars were full over the weekend. Beaches were full over the weekend in a place that's a hot spot. If that was a hot spot, there'd be way more people dead. Way more people dead. And I don't know why that's the case. I'm not a freaking scientist. I just know that they dug mass graves and they're not putting people in them. I know their hospitals are empty. I know people are out hanging out and like clanking beer glasses and giving people drunk hugs and calling their girlfriends in the middle of the night. You know what I'm saying? And like people are out doing things. And it's not spreading rapidly, and our hospitals are not overflowed. Almost every emergency hospital in every state, including New York, is closed. So I hear what you're saying on we can't trust these experts. Or maybe I'll go back to something Tim Pool said last week. We just need new experts.
That's my question.
These experts suck. And either they suck at their job, or they're liars. Those are the only two options. Dr. Neil Ferguson in the UK was wrong. Dr. Fauci was wrong. We need new experts. And I think there's more evidence that they're liars than that they're wrong. And I hate saying, or maybe they have misplaced, motivations that are intertwining. I don't know. I was blaming a lot of this on litigiousness of our society. Like people were afraid of getting sued, and that applied to cities, states, and even the United States. And like maybe everyone's just being overcautious because they're afraid they're going to get sued. I don't think that's the case anymore. I've kind of thrown that away. I wanted to give my culture the benefit of the doubt that what we were doing was for a decent reason. But I can find no decency in this decision making. I can find none. I can find no reason to not only not continue what we're doing right now, Mr. Henry, statewide and nationwide, but to make a decree that something like this should never happen again. Because the damage is done, and it's way worse than the coronavirus could have ever caused.
And think about it this way too, man. Kelly just said in Facebook here, no, they know exactly, they know, K-N-O-W, they know exactly what they are doing. And Albert Citizen followed up by saying, yes, they were terrible back in February, even more so now. And think about that, man. Even back in February, like these same alleged experts back in February were telling us, like, yeah, it's not a problem. All right, like Democrat, Republican, it didn't matter. CDC, WHO, none of that necessarily mattered. These same alleged experts back in February were saying, Nancy Pelosi was saying, show up to these Chinese New Year's parties. It's not a problem. The New York City Health Commissioner was saying the exact same thing. Arguably, the Republicans were making as much light of this as Democrats were. So if we're supposed to be taking it seriously now, I don't know. Did everyone just sort of stumble upon that realization? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Now you could say, Mr. Henry, like, I get it. American public is about as fickle as Hollywood movie stars are. Possibly, man. But there are also ones that are led willfully and sometimes even blindly into what the scientific consensus is. And that's what's so frustrating for people right now in this day and age of our inability to have a nuanced conversation. In this day and age where we all have this logical fallacy of just appeal to authority, right? Well, my authority is better than your authority type thing. And then you're not having a conversation or an argument. You're just trading authority headlines across the board type thing. In that day and age, it becomes abundant, like exceedingly important to have a consensus as to what is and what is not, what's happening and what is not happening, man. And I think the best way to do that, the point I'm really getting to here is, unfortunately, I think you have to start as local as possible. I really do. I think you have to start with your local community, your local neighborhoods, your local government, and work outwards from there, dude, because a blanket top down, I know I'm speaking in adages here, but it's purposeful. It's for a reason. They are old adages for a reason, man, because I think if you start from a national top down level, all of a sudden you're going to think that New York City is the same thing as the three other most populous states out there. Do this as just an example for yourself. Look at the population of New York, California, Texas, and Florida. All right. New York, California, Texas, and Florida. And then look at the way that Texas and Florida have handled this as opposed to California and New York. And then look at the population density compared those two and the number of cases of positive confirmation cases that they have going on right now. Right. I think Albert Citizen hit it on the head, man. Like, if, yeah, they were terrible now, but they were also terrible back in February. And it kind of gets to the point, dude, of like, well, who do you trust? Because trust itself, dude, is something that is so insanely fleeting in this day and age. I don't know what to do with it anymore, buddy. Listen to this interview last night. This is a hard transition, but I hope it makes sense. Listen to this interview last night. President Trump was giving this interview with Fox News, and I always forget this lady's name, so I apologize ahead of time. It doesn't matter. The question is what matters here, though. All right? This is the level of trust that we are to right now. I'm telling you right now. Just listen to this question.
Do everything.
Do you believe President Obama directed the U.S. intelligence agencies to spy on you?
Yes, he probably directed them, but if he didn't direct them, he knew everything.
Once they
and
couldn't
you'll see
find
that. By the way, excuse
evidence.
me, you're going to see that when the papers came out. Remember the Lisa Page text to her lover saying POTUS wants to see everything? POTUS. They're not talking about me. I wasn't president. They're talking about POTUS wants to see everything. Well, there was a meeting
on January 5th.
We're going to get to much more of this interview, I promise you. But Sean, do you get what I'm saying? This is the level of trust that we're at in this nation right now. We're in an interview with the sitting president of the United States. They ask him, by the way, like, we got this whole spy thing going on from the previous administration where, like, it's essentially irrefutable evidence now at this point that they were looking into your campaign. By the way, too, let me say quickly, if anyone forgot this, we all realize that the exact same players that were looking into the Hillary Clinton scandal before this were also the exact same players that were looking into Donald Trump, right? I mean, we get that, right? I'm talking Clapper, I'm talking Comey, I'm talking Page, I'm talking Strzok. All of these same people were the exact same people that were set up to look after Uranium One. They were set up to look after the deleted bleach bit email scandal, all that stuff. The exact same people were in charge of all that stuff. We're also in charge of looking into Donald Trump. So the questions then posed to him last night of, do you think a previous president, I'm not talking administration, straight up, do you think President Obama directed our intelligence communities to spy on you? This is the question verbatim. Do you believe President Obama directed the U.S. intelligence agencies to spy on you? Verbatim was the question, and his response was, yeah, of course. Well, even if he didn't, he definitely knew about it. It's like, bro, hold on. So we had a 2-year scandal about Russia possibly influencing some election. And that was the most scandalous thing in world history, but definitely American history for sure. Like overshooting Watergate like it was the moon type thing. That was the scandal previously. And now you're telling me that we weaponized the U.S. intelligence agencies to work in cooperation with media to get talking points from Obama's DOJ, and it all might have actually been directed by the previous president to ensure that Trump didn't win. Like, if that's the level of trust that we're at right now, then I'm kind of sitting back saying, Shine, it's no wonder that people aren't trusting a consensus. Because what in the world even is consensus right now? Go ahead, Shine.
It's amazing that they trusted in the first place, considering the level of trust that they should have. And this is something that I think I talked to you about before the show that blows my mind. I think it's just because it had to do with health, right? And not just public safety. If it had been just public safety, no one would have trusted. Not enough to shut down their business. But because it had to do with health. But at the same time, it's connected to these institutions. Like I said, this isn't about personalities, right? For me, anyway. Because I feel like power corrupts people no matter how good they are. So for me, it's about these institutions. What they do to people. And what they're alive almost. But we have had plenty of reasons over the past 20 years to not trust these institutions. Or at least not trust them enough to say, I'm going to put my livelihood in your hands. I mean, it's one thing to be against like a war or something like that. It's another thing to say, I'm going to give all my earthly possessions to you because I feel like you're having a good idea right now. Because that's essentially what we all did. What we all, especially people who own businesses, they basically said, here's all my earthly possessions. I'll let you be in charge of whether or not they have success in the future. And we have not had a government with a good enough track record to do that with. And I don't care if it's a state, a city, or whatever. Nobody is doing government so good that you could trust them with your entire livelihood. They're not. None of them. I don't care what government anywhere in the world. And that's why this is not just wrong, but stupid on our parts. And I only say that, I'm using the word stupid on our parts to emphasize the point we should never let this happen again. Never. I don't care if there's a disease with a 30% death rate. You give people and say, this is how you stay healthy. This is what I recommend you should do. This is what experts are saying you should do. But this whole police state, people going around and kicking people off beaches and throwing people in jail for trying to do business, when it's that person deciding they can take a risk to open their doors, and the person who wants to give them money is taking a risk. Though humans are allowed to take risks. Darn it. I was trying not to say a bad word. Like, we're allowed to do that. We are allowed. And the main reason we're allowed is for a practical reason. They can't stop all of us. That's the reason they don't have the authority. I mean, maybe if they could read minds, control humans, or something like that. But no one's ever been able to do that. No one has. No one will either. That's why they want... No, I'm not going to get into that. We should never allow this again. Because it was our allowance of it that made it possible. It was our volunteerism. We talked about this at the very beginning. The only way the government was going to get everybody to shut down is if they convinced everyone. Because they don't have the ability to do it. They could use all federal resources and couldn't close every business in East Tennessee. If every Fed in every department came to East Tennessee, they couldn't close all businesses if everybody wanted them open. That's reality. We need to get back to reality. We say we're bringing reality back. Here's the reality. This was a bad idea, and it could kill our kids and grandkids. Could kill them. Just allowing this as a possibility is saying, hey, there's a disease. Everybody stay in your homes. That's weird. I've awoken from the dream. We were in some kind of sick, weird dream, and I'm over it. I'm over it. Reject infinite executive power. And I know I probably shouldn't be talking like this. I'm supposed to be like a mature person who does stuff, whatever. I'm done with it. This is too serious. This is more serious than almost anything that's ever happened. Mm-hmm. No government has ever gotten people to voluntarily stay in their homes on this mass level ever. And they've never been trying to enforce it on this level ever in human history. Think about it. And I'll stop.
Kelly
I've been going
said,
so long. I'm
Albert,
so sorry.
No, Albert said on Facebook a second ago, man. Yes, that's exactly correct, Mr. Henry. I'm so done, more done, really burnt, if you want a temperature. Kelly goes on to say, we've never been able to trust them. They've given us zero reasons. But Kelly also goes on to say, not the D's, not the R's, not the alphabet soup of all other government agencies. Never, ever have any of these agencies given the American public any reason to trust them. I kind of want to focus for a second, dude, on what Kelly just said, not the D's, not the R's, because that's another component that only exacerbates this entire problem. And that's why I sort of started this whole thing today with that story at the very beginning of the show notes up here, talking about the Tennessee Freedom Rally meeting for the third time. That's why I'm started trying to pick up on this idea, this simple notion that maybe people just want to be able to feel like they're in control of something. Maybe people just want to start to feel like that their actions matter for any given reason. You get what I'm saying? When Kelly says not the D's, not the R's, I think about, okay, so what other option do you have then? I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to placate Kelly's, a question here. I'm not trying to throw some, general hypothetical out there. I'm more so pointing to the headline that I'm sure everyone saw over the weekend. Libertarians were distraught over Justin Amash stepping down as no longer being a presidential candidate. You'll see this in the show notes as well. And I don't even know if it really matters all that much, frankly, but it mattered to them. I want to say,
for my friends because of that. I did. I don't care if Justin Amash is running. Really, I don't. But I felt bad for my friends. I really did. That was some disappointing news for a lot of people over the weekend.
It was, man. And honestly, I think it was more to say, I'll hold that opinion for a second. Let me just tell people what's going on here. Okay. If you didn't know what was happening, Justin Amash is a Republican elected congressman. Now, what I mean by that is he ran as a Republican. That's an important point in my mind because he did not get elected as a libertarian. He then switched after the whole Trump scandal with the impeachment nonsense that went on. He then switched to independent and subsequently came back into the back end. Now he's libertarian again. So technically speaking, yes, he is the first ever actual libertarian congressman in the history of the United States, or at least, yes, that's true in the history of the United States, history of the party for sure. So Amash a little while back announced a presidential exploratory campaign. And for Justin Amash, that was basically like, okay, libertarians, if you want to make me your nominee, just have at it. Because that's exactly what was happening. If you follow these polling from state to state, and that's exactly what I've been doing, you know how Mr. Henry feels. I like to pretend that I lean libertarian. I just can't figure out the big L libertarian party. I cannot figure it out. But every stitch of my being has libertarianism written into it, right? Like if I could run as a libertarian and win on something, you better believe I would run as a libertarian and win on something, all right? And I'm pretty sure Justin Amash felt the same way. And he was killing it, dude. He was killing it in the polls. It was highly, highly likely, highly probable that he was going to become the libertarian presidential nominee. But now, over the weekend, he announces he's not running anymore. He's just like, this is what he's saying. A Twitter rant that he went on saying, after much reflection, I've concluded that circumstances don't lend themselves to my success as a candidate for president this year, and therefore I will not be a candidate. He tweeted this on Saturday. He went on to say that the new reality of social distancing levels the playing field among the candidates in many respects, but it also means lesser known candidates are more dependent on adequate media opportunities to reach people. That was a major thing for the Libertarian Party. Justin Amash had those adequate media opportunities baked in, either by way because of his previous controversy by not supporting Trump during the impeachment, or because he's so consistent on the way he votes on bills, or the fact that he's just an elected congressman at a national level.
Well, the Democrats were going to give him attention because he could pull votes from Trump. That's
another good point, right?
That's the main reason he was going to get media opportunity. Let's be real about it. It isn't because his controversies have to do with being anti-Trump. Let's be real. Okay, the reason he was gonna get media attention because he was anti-Trump. That's the real deal, and that's why a lot of people were excited. I think he was supposed to run, man. I told
Amash?
you that. Yeah, I'm telling you the way I envisioned the world. I told you about this in 2017. I said there's gonna be a libertarian candidate, and he's gonna get a crap ton of Democrats to vote for him. That was my guess, and it's like I could feel it. I was telling you this around the Kavanaugh times. Remember that? I called you on the phone during the Kavanaugh hearings, and I'm like, this is what I see the future happening. It was supposed to happen. That's why I think a lot of people are disappointed. There was a space for it. There was space.
Yes, there was.
There was space.
Especially now.
And he was filling it. There was an opportunity, and he was filling it, and then he walked away from it. He was going to get media coverage. If he said that he was not going to get media coverage, and that's why he's dropping, then that's not true. Now, he may have had trouble with ballot access. That's definitely a thing, but especially with coronavirus going on. I mean, a lot of government offices aren't open. He came to the party a little late. He could have started a year ago. That would have helped. But the media coverage thing was a Trump thing, and he would have played right into it perfectly, and he would have gotten so many votes because of that.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, man, even some of the people that he might have frustrated on the Trump side, I guarantee there's a lot of disenfranchised Trump supporters. Let's just take an example. Let's say you're a Second Amendment supporter and you're a Trump fan also. Okay, you beloved the Second Amendment almost as much as any other amendment out there. I'd say if you want to prioritize and take the Fourth over anything else, that's just my opinion. Nevertheless, let's say yours is the second. Then you start to look at President Trump and you're like, man, I got silencer bans. Man, I got bump stock bans. Man, I got red flag laws. I just don't know where to fall anymore. Maybe you grab some of those disenfranchised people over to the Justin Amash side, over to the libertarian side, and like, this is starting to make sense. This is a little bit of what true conservatism was or once was or should be or always should have been. I don't know. But the opportunity was there. The opportunity was there, first of all, for that reason. Secondly, because we're in the midst of this shutdown, dude. We're in the midst of where, like, if there's a consensus on anything, we just said there may not be consensus on scientific data, but if there's a consensus on anything right now, it has to be that both sides have found themselves questioning whether government is the actual solution they want or can posit solutions that work the most effectively. Amash finalized this whole thing by saying polarization is near an all-time high. I agree. He says electoral success requires an audience willing to consider alternatives, but both social media and traditional media are dominated by voices strongly adverse to taking political risk posed by a viable third party. Now, importantly, let me hit some of these comments here, and then I want to make one final point that I really, third time, really hope is not true. Here's what Daniel said. At least Vermin, he means Vermin Supreme, one of the other libertarian candidates here, at least Vermin will get attention and get people talking. All right, now Vermin Supreme, you obviously know him. He's the guy that, in a very satirical sense, I'm talking like the quintessential definition of the word satire, offers people free ponies and wears this massive boot on his head. He's making a mockery of the entire political system because why not? Every other candidate's making a mockery of it as well. So do this same thing. If you watched the House last week, just be honest about it.
If you watched the House last week, the critique, let's give everybody a pony as a satirical joke is reality.
Yeah, exactly, right? Here's $3 trillion. Whatever, make it 6. It doesn't matter.
We're going to give you $2,000 a month to not pay attention that we're going to reform voting in the House and you voting for president all in the same bill and not talk about it. Anyway,
right?
Yeah. So you'll make this point. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, dude. Albert goes on to say there is no problem for more than 90% of the population. Jonathan just said Trump is far too popular. I tend to agree with that as well. I don't think this is ever truly going to affect whether Trump wins or not. But to be honest, I think the Libertarian Party said the same thing. I don't think they were expecting they were going to win or even possibly make it so that Trump would lose. I think more than anything, they were just possibly hoping to get some notoriety, hoping to match that 5% federal funding. I don't know, man. I'm not exactly sure. Eric says, hey, he's late to the party. Hey, Eric, what's going on, buddy? Yes, we are talking to Mosh, by the way. He goes on to say, crazy. Hornberger makes the most sense to me at this point. I hear you. Here's the thing that I've been holding back, okay? And here's the thing that I really hope is not true. Quick preface before I make this point. I'm not a part of the Libertarian Party. I do not know enough about the inner workings of the Libertarian Party to qualify this statement. The only qualification that I can give to this statement is that I've been reading this statement from other people in the Libertarian Party. Here's the statement. It seems to some that because the Libertarian Party is so disorganized, it's so chaotic, that Justin Amash essentially Wizard of Oz style peeled that veil back and said, all right, thanks, but no thanks, guys, right? Like he got into it and thought like, yeah, now's the time for me to run, man. Now's the time for me to make a difference. But once he got in there, started dealing with delegate nonsense, started dealing with the party dynamics, the party politics itself, he started to think like, dude, this is worse than what I just left. I'm not making that statement. I've read this on libertarian blog posts. I've read this on Facebook comments. I've read this other places as well. And I desperately hope that is not the case, bro. Because every part of me does not want to admit that the Libertarian Party is just a really cool philosophy club. I want to believe that it has the potential to be a legitimate party, man. A legitimate party that can compete, a qualified contender, if you will. I just don't see evidence of that. And if it is true, if even any part of that is true, that Justin Amash got in there and saw the inner workings and thought like, dude, there's too many monkey wrenches. Like, I can't fix this. It's too much. It's too much to fix right now. It's too quick. It's too soon. I can't do this in the next couple of months. Someone in 2024 can. Listen to the thing he finalized this Twitter rant with. This is the final statement Amash made. I remain invested in helping the party realize these possibilities and look forward to the success ahead. That's a little bit for me, Justin Amash saying like, look, bro, someone in 2024 might get this. And Shine, I always said, I believe Trump is a bull in a china shop, wrecking way to make way for a more principled individual to come after him in 2024. That's hopefully maybe what Amash is thinking. Like, I'll be that guy for you in 2024. But right now, your whole party has some stuff to take care of first. I'll be honest with y'all, dude. Like, I have wanted to. This is total vulnerable moment for Mr. Henry here. So give me a little bit of allowance, okay? And I may have to recant. I hope I will recant. I have really wanted to become a part of the LP. I wanted to try and dive into that, but it seems like just the comment sections are so toxic, bro. Like, it's such a toxic environment to introduce yourself into. If you don't meet the qualifying standards, I don't even know what those qualifying standards are either, because it's different for each individual you ask. But allegedly, if you don't meet those qualifying standards, you are excommunicated. Like, you cannot get in. You're not deemed worthy enough. And maybe that's a little bit of what Amash came across. I'm going to catch up with comments, and I'll let you respond real quick, Sean, because I want to know what the folks in Real News
I think you can sum up a response from the comments section to what you just said right here from Daniel Snowden, who I know is a member of the LP. It says, I hope the LP never has a qualified contender. It was formed to get free airtime for anarchism. Which probably is somewhat true, at least for a portion of the Libertarian Party, and probably some of the... probably part of the frustration that you have about it, a little bit. It's a forum more than it is a party, and that's a really good point, because it acts like a forum. But, like, I don't know, people in glass houses can't throw stones. I've started plenty of movements that have devolved into people just sitting around at a bar complaining about stuff. That's happened. I've done that. Me and Grant have been a part of groups like that, where we said we were going to do something, but we ended up sitting around at a bar complaining about stuff. But that's probably why
which is a lot of fun.
Which is a lot of fun. And right? Cathartic, too. When you feel like you don't have control. When you feel like there's something that's outside of your control that's having a negative impact on you, it's cathartic to sit around with your friends and talk about it. That's it's part of why we do this show. Is so we can sit around and talk about the things that frustrate us. But something that's been an evolution in me and Mr. Henry's thinking, and this is a shameless plug, is getting involved with these people, because they actually are teaching us and have taught us how to go from that space of complaining and having kind of balled up emotion and energy, and then turning that into tangible change. And that's something important to keep in mind. That's why I kind of bringing it back full circle. So proud of those Free Tennessee people for channeling that anger into something nonviolent. Frustration. Let's not call it anger. Let's call it frustration, maybe even fear, and channeling it into something nonviolent and into something that actually changed things for the good of their purpose. Like, according to their purpose, it was good by getting Tennessee open. Because there's lots of places where people get balled up anger and frustration and fear, and it turns into violence. So props to America, props to all these places, even the people complaining and whatever, portions of the Libertarian Party that Grant's talking about, at least they're doing that instead of being violent. So there's lots of things I just threw in there, Mr. Henry, if you want to get back to the comments. But
yeah, let's see. Eric just said a second ago too. I thank Nick Sarwark for that. He's running that party. Him and his cronies openly fight with everyone who doesn't bow at the altar. Daniel Snudnier read that comment a second ago. Eric went on to say, if its members would abide by the core principles of libertarianism, we would do much better. Kelly actually said, absolutely correct. LP is a mess. And it's just like, dude, I don't know, man. It's just like, if ever there was a time or a need for somebody principled, somebody consistent, somebody to kind of come in and make sense of at least a little bit of what's going on. I'll put it this way, bro. Like, I don't think anyone's so disillusioned right now to think that Trump is going to lose this next election. Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Green Party, all alike.
Nobody.
Right?
Nobody thinks he's going to lose. Especially Joe Biden, man. He probably cries himself to sleep every night before he falls asleep for the 7th time that day. You know what I mean?
Honestly, speaking of Joe Biden real quick, Tim Pool is actually the one that picked up on this, bro. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, we were listening to him the other day, and there was an interview that he did with Jimmy Kimmel, or was it Jimmy Fallon? Doesn't matter. But Jimmy Fallon was essentially asking Joe Biden about his it doesn't matter, fill in some blank of some policy issue. It really doesn't matter. But Joe Biden couldn't convince Jimmy Kimmel, Fallon, It doesn't matter. The names don't matter.
Call
he
him
couldn't
Jimmy
convince
Nowhere.
the late night show
Jimmy Nobody.
Jimmy, right? He couldn't convince the late night show host that his policy was accurate or that would work. So Joe Biden's response was like, you know what, Jimmy, just vote for somebody else. What? Dude, what are you talking about? Right? Like, it was literally, it's that South Park
It's
moment,
like
buddy.
the third or fourth time that Joe Biden has told someone to vote for somebody else. It's like the fourth time on national television. Instead of trying to convince people that he's right, he just says, we'll vote for somebody else. Which is a really good campaign strategy, by the way. It's like the best thing you could do if you're running for president. Wink, wink. Is say, don't
Honestly,
vote
dude,
for me.
Maybe,
you know?
maybe he's playing that taboo angle where he's just like, yeah, just don't vote for me. Well, now I'm gonna vote for you because you told me not to.
Because when I think of Joe Biden, Mr. Henry, you know what I think? Forbidden fruit. That's what I think. I think, you know what? If I could just have the knowledge of good and evil and pick from the Joe Biden tree, everything would be good. That's what I think of Joe Biden. Oh, I'm the taboo vote. I'm the dangerous, rebellious vote, voting for Joe Biden. It's like voting for a sleeping pill. You know,
you remember that episode of South Park, man, where Mr. Garrison's character ran for president, right? And by the very end, he realized that he might actually win, but he had no way to actually run the country. Like, he had no policies, he had no platform, he had no actual ideas. He was just like, his entire thing was based upon just getting back at the Canadians, which in the series was basically Mexicans. It doesn't matter. Anyways, he was just trying to get back at the Canadians. He didn't have any actual policy proposal. And towards the very end, during some of his debates, he was trying to be as purely honest as possible, like a pure candid moment here, right? And he was pleading with the audience, said, please, for the love of God, just vote for her. It was Hillary Clinton playing the other person. Just vote for her. Like, she knows what she's doing. I have no idea what's going on here. And this was a little bit of the South Park folks trying to predict that Trump was going to get it wrong, that he was going to lose. And arguably, you can listen
or
to Matt
that
Stone
if he
and Trey
won,
Parker.
he was so one-dimensional that he would look stupid. Yeah.
And you can actually listen to Matt Stone and Trey Parker in subsequent interviews say this is the only time that they've ever gotten a political prediction wrong. In like the 25 seasons of South Park, this is the only time. And they've taken, dude, when I say strong stances, I mean, watch the China episodes, right? When you're talking about strong stances, bro, like, this is the only time they've ever gotten something wrong. But a little bit of the truth of what they were saying there is like, the response for some of these people was, you know, well, I like that honesty. He's telling me he has no idea what's going on. It's like, that's not what Joe Biden's doing. Clearly, that's not what Joe Biden's doing. But it's like, what else does he have left at this point? Just vote for somebody else because I don't care. I don't care how this comes out, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's definitely not. What's so funny about that whole thing, and I don't mind calling, because I have a loose definition for the word prophet. I feel like the South Park people were prophets. People who can see, let me define that real quick, because I'm sure there's some people who think that's sacrilege for me to call them prophets. But people who can see things in culture and society, patterns, and then predict that how the pattern will manifest in its next phase. I call those people prophets. You know, people do just get patterns. Archetypal patterns. But our prophets, like these people from South Park who were super good at predicting the future, like really good at it because they were really good at seeing patterns because they understand story structure and narrative, they got it completely backwards, which is so weird. And what's so weird too is that it was all backwards. And it's still playing out as backwards. It's still playing out because you have the Democratic candidate who has no ideas. He's not even one-dimensional. He has no dimensions. I mean, Joe Biden has no dimensions. When you think, oh, well, Joe Biden would at least be really good at X or Y. Has anything come to mind for anybody? Like, I don't like George H.W. Bush, and I know he's already passed, I did not like him when I was very young, but I look at the history and I was alive a little bit. I don't like George H.W. Bush. I don't like someone who was a CIA director being the president. There's lots of things I don't like about him, but I can look at his resume and say, man, well, at the very least, he was probably really good at foreign policy and diplomat type stuff because he had lots of experience around foreign leaders and stuff. He could have been a great foreign policy president right after, especially if he'd done 2 terms, right after the fall of the Soviet Union. He was probably the most prepared for that of any president ever for the fall of the Soviet Union, and we only gave him 1 term. So, that's me trying to be objective and say this is something that he might be good at. There's lots of things he did that I don't like. Joe Biden, I can't be objective and say, man, it'd be great if we had Joe Biden's expertise on X, Y, or Z. He has no dimensions. So we can bring it back to South Park. The prediction was the Republican was an empty guy with one-dimensional who has no ideas. And when he becomes president, what would he actually do? Who even knows? It's backwards. I mean, Donald Trump has shown that he's multidimensional. I mean, like, not only just on that one dimension of the Mexico-Canada thing, we have no immigration right now. Zero immigration right now. I think the immigration authorities are about to run out of money because so many people are not coming. There's so little people coming, and they've closed so many offices or whatever. He's built the wall, but then like he also did the economy thing, and he also like made deals with other nations. And this isn't a Donald Trump love fest. This is about our culture generally not understanding where we're at. The people who are supposed to tell us where we're at and where we're going, we're completely confused. And that means, and I'll go back to we need new experts. Like, we need new South Park. Those people got completely upside down. We need new health experts. Neil Ferguson got everything completely wrong and has probably ruined the country of the UK for decades. He doesn't need to have a voice anymore. A voice that is so amplified. I mean, I'm not saying put him in jail or anything like that. Dr. Fauci was wrong. He doesn't need to be amplified anymore. We need new amplified people. And they may be wrong too, but we need to start throwing away people who don't get what's going on. And South Park did a great job with China, but that was reactionary. You get what I'm saying?
That's a good point,
that was reactionary and obvious. They should have been doing that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
China was obviously controlling members of our society in the entertainment industry, academics, and government. And that's obvious now, where we've had all these professors go to jail for giving, it constantly in the news. Follow Epoch Times. Every other week, there's some professor from a university getting arrested for giving U.S. secrets to China and money to China, or money to China. And the most recent one was in Arkansas, the most benign sounding places. Here in East Tennessee, back in 2017, we interviewed Jamie Satterfield about a VP at TVA who was arrested and charged with spying for the Chinese government. This has been around for a while. We need new experts, even down to the level of our predictive prophets in media, like South Park. But all that's me just doing a crazy archetypal drop right there. Hopefully that made sense to everybody.
Oh, it did. Jonathan just said on Facebook, there's 3 as of last week. And I'm telling you, man, they got one from Arkansas, he says, last week. I'm telling you, man, I don't know what you do in a day and age like this where, again, I don't know Vermin Supreme all that well at all, but at least just to understand where he's coming from, what he's talking about from time to time, it's a bit of headlines like this. Right. It's a frustrating thing where we're in a particular situation where, stuff should be taken so seriously, but sometimes it's like nobody's taking it seriously at all. I mean, we're about to drop $6 trillion. Let's call it 6.5 or even 7 trillion, 8 trillion by the end of this decade, possibly this decade. What am I talking about? By the end of the next year or two, certainly by the end of the Trump administration, we may drop another, they're talking $8 trillion, man. That's absurd. Right. And I'm not knocking on Senator Kennedy here because I appreciate his response, but his response to, this act passing last week in the House was like, no, it's DOA. We can't get our heads that far up our rears. And I appreciate that. I do, bro. But it's like, I don't know, man. Like, we just passed 3 trillion of it. To Republicans' credit, man, they did say, here's what Kennedy says, her, meaning Pelosi's bill, her bill would rewrite our immigration laws. Her bill would federalize elections, he said. It would allow federal prisoners to go free. It mentions dope more than it talks about jobs. I think it references cannabis like 68 times. I'm still quoting him here. It says it would expand Obamacare. I mean, to be fair to Republicans here, man, I try and be as fair as possible because I knocked them before with the corporate welfare and the cronyism in the last bit go around. There's a lot of that baked in this. To be fair to GOP members right now, they're kind of saying like, bro, what does any of this have to do? Again, one more time, what does any of this have to do with helping out heroes? Right? What does this have to do with helping out our frontline responders, with getting protective equipment to them, to I don't know, helping out the American people? You're going to pass $3 trillion, and the best you can sum up again is another $1,200 check. This bill is going to mess around with immigration laws, federalize elections, going to let federal prisoners go free. It talks about medical cannabis or something like that, apparently 68 times or something. I'm personally for that. As much as anybody else out there, as much as any other good libertarian is legalizing it to some extent, if not full-on recreational use. That's neither here nor there, though. I think what some of the people are making is, if you want to have an honest conversation about that, let's do this. But this omnibus shoving everything in at the exact same time, who's going to take you seriously? And again, I think that's where Vermin Supreme goes off sometimes wearing a boot on his head and promising ponies, because he's kind of saying like, I don't know, man, nobody else is taking this politics stuff seriously, so why should I take it seriously? Honestly, I'm not I'm not saying I'm coming around to his rhetoric at that point, because I think if you want to be a political party, you have to treat yourself as a political party. But I at least understand where he's coming from is what I'm saying, bro. You look at something like this, and it's like, again, this is what he's saying. He's arguing that this $3 trillion bill has no chance of passing at all. Here's his exact quote. It's not going to pass the Senate, nor should it. My fellow Republicans in the Senate have tried to see things from the speaker's point of view, but we can't get our heads that far up our rear ends. And I think any fair-minded American would agree. I don't know, man. Sean, what's your take on this, dude? Is it promising too much? Are we hoping for too much that Senator Kennedy saying like, no, this is going to fail. Don't worry about it.
Well, I think the fact that you had 12 Democrats vote against the bailout was good. You had one Republican who voted for it in the House. And it shows that it's not really partisan if 12 Democrats voted against it, I think. And I think that's a lot of weight. Do you mind if I play our own representative here in East Tennessee, Tim Burchett's thoughts on...
Definitely. Be a great way to go out, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me make it full screen for everybody. Here we go.
Hey, everybody. Tim Burchett just stepped off the House floor. The primary focus of this bill was just to keep people out of work. It does nothing to encourage anybody to get back to work. It provides funding for abortions. It takes over elections, federal control from our state elections, which do an excellent job, and it just on down the line, paying illegals, coronavirus relief money, should go to American citizens, and we're just rewarding states that have not managed their money well, and on top of that, it gives tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires in places like New Jersey and New York. So it's just a terrible piece of legislation. It was done backroom, Ms. Pelosi and the lobbyist, and no input by anybody else, and a lot of people in our own party are voting against it, but I have no doubt it will pass. But anyway, thank y'all for sending me here.
So yeah, that's Tim Burchett's thoughts on it. Very similar to the article that you put out there, but I thought it might have a little bit more weight coming from our elected official here in the East Tennessee area. And to me, it spells it out. He spells it out perfectly. It changes our elections. Instead of having 50 state elections because of some emergency, this is going to federalize elections. That's a bad idea. If you're worried about votes being counted the right way, it's a bad idea. And then it's not about coronavirus. It's about emptying the federal coffers into whose pockets? I don't even know. I mean, who are these people who might get billions and billions and billions of dollars? And what are they going to do with them? I mean, that the government gave out just a few $100 million back during the Obama administration, and it funded bad online news sites for like 5 years. That changed our entire political dialogue. I do not know what they do with all this money, but I know it isn't good stuff. And I know that incentivizing people to not work is a bad idea. We've already seen multiple articles about companies having trouble hiring people because they can't pay more than the government's paying them right now. And when does that all end? When does that end? It doesn't end, because when people don't know how to make money and you take their money from them, they do know how to break stuff. They do know how to burn things. They know how to break glass. They know how to, you know what I'm saying? They do know how to do that. So I don't know. I think they're setting us up for some terrible future.
And by the way, Shannon and I have to get on a work call like right now. Actually, it just creeped up on us. But last thing I'll say on the way out here, rejectbailouts.com. You'll see at the top of the show notes right there, rejectbailouts.com. Make your voice heard on that. Sign that petition. I mean, Ken, I'm telling you, at some point when this whole thing is done, Shannon and I will be able to go over the entire metrics and layout as to how effective of an impact you all have had on this issue with the company that we work for. Suffice it to say, it is absolutely overwhelming. But we'll end the show right now. Be back tomorrow doing it big. Love y'all. Peace.